Good morning and welcome. I am so glad that you're here taking care of your body. I hope you are waking up and feeling amazing. But what happens when we wake up and we don't feel so vibrant in our bodies, especially if we have pain in our back? This flow is to help put that to rest. So let's explore. Let's try to strengthen our precious stabilization system that we have in our curves of our low back space and opening of the hips. I want to explore your curve in the asana rest position of savasana. So let's get going. I want you to come to your mat. Let's start in savasana and notice where you feel space in that region. Using your body sense, finding your breath, and notice if you have low back space from the hip crest to the belly button, or is it someplace else? Does it resonate past the belly button? Is it more spaciousness from left side to right side? What is it that you sense in your body? Using your proprioceptive sense, your awareness of your body to your environment. Notice your hips. Hopefully you're not on your tailbone. That sometimes congests the system. Ideally, being in rest, being on the butt cheeks themselves is a healthier feeling. So I want to charge up those precious reflexes. You can use a yoga block to do this. Getting the sensitivity of touch helps that, or using a half roller. Melt is my go-to. Love it. So I'm going to use my half roller. I'm going to have the round side up and the flat side down, and positioning it underneath the firmness of my hips. So the frontal hip points are more rolling away from me, but not losing my neck space. Maybe even connecting into the triceps, the back of the arms, to explore how to press down to open. Take some focus breaths here and jump to how your feet are being felt, to your mat, to your floor. And notice if when you press those heels energetically away, if you manifest a posterior tuck, or can you press those heels away and get more suction cup feel of that low back space adhering to the surface that you're using. And it needs to be a soft surface. Our connective tissue is soft and supple. So should the tools that we use. Even if you wrap up a towel around an extra yoga mat, that often does the trick. But as I can connect into my feet and have my sternum or my chest bone open and my collarbones open, can I get more of this sense of equalness in my feet? Do you feel one foot more pronounced to the floor more so than the other? I want to start with lifting up my left heel, but keep active in my opposite footprint as I press away. Hips are in anterior tilt, meaning the frontal hip points again are moving away from me. And then maybe unloading my foot. And notice if you have that neurological reception of neuroquiver. And we're holding for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Maybe even feeling other reflexes coming alive up the inner thigh. And then reconnecting the ball mound of the foot, using those long bones to roll down towards the heel, energetically press away, hooking those thumbs, add a good morning stretch, and finding breath in the body, maybe bending at the elbows, goal posting, those elbows, those arms, the chest to lift forward. Take into account your body sense once again. And maybe your footprints have equaled out even more so. But let's check out the other side too. So I'm going to roll using those long bones to the big toe mound. Very important that you sense that big toe. We don't want to really weight bear solely on the outside edges of those footprints. So I'm using the anterior tilt and then maybe hovering and maybe even a whisper of touch to the top of the roller or the yoga block that you're using. Notice the movement that your nervous system is trying to achieve. We have this amazing entity of communication into ourselves, and it's happening for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Energetically keep connection of that heel pressing away, anterior tilt, 4, 3, 2, 1, and nice and gently roll it on back. And then use the hooking of the thumbs to open it up. And maybe even feel more of the spinal erectors and even more of the thoracic extension of your back, which should feel good. I'm going to use my breath to sense my core into my belly. Frog knees, let them grow wide, and root the tail to roll in a different position, maybe activating those ankles to round and to open. It just should feel good. Maybe connecting into the upper top of my hip crest and creating a shear, isolating maybe the bottom leg, using breath and beautiful sensation. Every time I leave a place, I'm reminding those cells to communicate. It's more of a neurological practice for a lifetime versus a muscle practice only for a lifetime. We need to use not just our muscles, but neurological happiness as well. Those muscles need to stay strong. We're using the lowest portion of the belly. Keep opening the chest. Maybe one foot lands. Maybe we can get both toes to touch at the same time. Really absorbing the hips into anterior tilt on top of your surface, rolling down towards the heels. But more importantly, using those stabilizing reflexes to help hold space between our bones. The fascia is happier too. How does your feet feel? More importantly, as you gently lift on up, extend those legs out and reassess your savasana. Maybe you feel totally different. Hopefully you do. I really have a defined lumbar back space. Even feels more really much lower, and can really be very connected all at the same time, where my proprioception is on point, feeling the love in the butt cheeks, truly off the tailbone. So now we're a little bit more prepared in our body to do what we need to do. Let's prepare our hands and not only do we have this amazing neurological communication into our feet, but so do we have them in our hands. I'm just going to separate each and every one of those fingers. Maybe stimulating the finger, pulling back the thumbs, checking into my forearm. Any areas of tenderness, maybe I'll linger a little longer, and maybe the indirect and shear of my neck, getting some space in there. The lumbar back, I'm switching hands, and the cervical back, that's those two spaces kind of mimic each other. It's like yin and yang. When one is being stimulated, the other one is getting a treat too. So we need to be mindful of helping those curves be curves for a beautiful journey of movement throughout our lifetime. And I'm just going to lean into my wrist, gripping all 10 fingers and maybe even corkscrewing those arm bones so the pits are looking towards me. There they are. And see if I can grip and maybe invite the shoulder blades down, swirling to the left, swirling to the right, being true to how we perform in the spaces that we can give in between each of those ribs, making the psoas feel happy as it just is a free bird in its movements without having to do other types of support to our other muscle systems. I'm going to hover my knees and gently allow the hips to lift. Heels don't necessarily plant, but it just feels good. Keep corkscrewing those arm bones. And then maybe sensing, as I come back into quadruped, this movement of flexion and extension into my thoracic body. Maybe keeping the hips nice and stable, and maybe flaring the heels wide so I can really stabilize my hips as I mobilize my spine. It's that T12 region that is truly needing to separate from lumbar to thoracic spine and how we move that. So we're not just clumping it as a chunk and then move back into down dog. Should feel good. And then bending at my knees and maybe walking, keeping length in my spine, hips are open. Maybe using blocks as I explore how my movement is. If I rest my chest on top of my thighs and create extension and flexion, can I hold extension? Moving into Utkatasana, feel that extension into the belly. Hands press into the thighs, thighs press against the hands, and explore again that flexion and extension without the hips going into that party too. Just there. Finding your Tadasana. And we're going to use some of these concepts in a practice to help create sustainability of the lumbar back. Do always what feels good in your body. And if it doesn't feel good, go back to holding. The magic is truly in our holds, in our breath. Hands press against the heart. Use your thumb to touch upon the sternum, that bony landmark, prominent bone where the collarbones meet into. And find your breath. Opening up the chest, sensing your lumbar back curve. Arms reach up. Good morning. Maybe using that good morning stretch, just like what we did on your mat in a standing tall position. I'm going to start bending at my knees, and just like an elevator, I'm coming down and not losing the length of my spine and my curve of my lumbar back. And as my chest is moving forward, I have some tension being challenged into my hips. Hands plant, stepping my left foot back, dropping my left knee, but not the toe. Push demand into the ball mound of that footprint. And notice if you interlace the fingers, keep maintaining the shoulders to widen and the chest to open, pressing through the footprint, exploring extension and flexion without moving the hips. There might be a little Jedi mind trick, but that's okay. And then use that breath to take a bow, pressing the footprint away, binding that left hand or forearm around the back of the body at that long reach sensation, and use the hips to move back. We're working with lumbar back curve today, so sense how we play in that belly button region. Both hands plant. Step in that right footprint back to plank. Feel firmness in your plank as you grip all 10 fingers. Corkscrew those arm bones. Get a little perky in the booty. So you're once again feeling that lumbar back curve. Dropping the knees and the top of the toes. Heart leads the way. Baby cobra. Using again the fingertips to pull back. How do you sense that low back curve here? Those spinal rectors, if they're not used to working, they're probably really firing on. So honor that. Finding the hips to lift up, press down to lift. Big toes come together, knees grow wide. And explore your child's pose. Just using lengthening sensation in your spine and breath. Truly is amazing, this life force of breath. And if I start coming out of my child's pose, just like a small child lifting up its head and manifesting energy of the knees to reach. So I'm feeling these muscles up into my hips to grab on to save the day. Hands slide back and down, and sensing the extension in your spine here. Gripping all 10 fingers, chest maintains its openness. Quadruped. Really be connected into the ball mounds of your footprints. Hips lift up, down dog. Left foot lifts. Maybe bend the knee, open up the hip, and seeing how we can play with that belly button. Rebalancing that left hip point. Maybe using the blocks because you want to really commit to the hands not to lift up. Left foot steps forward, dropping the back knee and not the toe. Use that energy of the feet to press away. Take a bow. Interlacing the fingertips. Active in the feet. Feel that hingement. Feel that lengthening and opening. And we're binding as we reach. that waving action is so super healthy. So don't be afraid. We should be practicing in balance all throughout our flows, our practices. Both hands plant, hips lift up, making room for that right foot to move forward. Bending at the knees, resting the chest on top of the thighs, maybe the hands on top of the thighs. Play with that hingement of that lumbar back space, finding that curve. Notice how those heels might Dorothy quick in to help you lift up. Opening, reaching, exploring what your body needs for the day. Utkatasana. And gently lower down, hands plant, stepping that right foot back, dropping the knee, but not the toe, press it away. Find that hingement. And maybe this time as we lift, check out posterior tuck. And then using anterior tilt, hips move forward, heart leads the way, feel that tension and integrity. As much as you're going forward with your chest, your butt is going back. Try it again, using footprint action. And the happiest of attitudes when the sun is shining, both hands plant, stepping that left foot back, feeling firm, feeling the armpit blades rolling down the back of the body, dropping the knees and the top of the toes, lower down, heart space leads, baby cobra. How can you make this even more refined? Toes tuck under, hips lift up first. Use those triceps to lengthen into down dog. Resetting your down dog at any time. So you're mindful of keeping even curve of your lumbar back in down dog. Looking ahead, right foot lifts, bend the knee, open up the hip, keeping active in both of those handprints. Maybe feeling that extension, maybe softening the heel and flexion. It's an amazing journey how your body just is all connected. When you're moving one body part, you're feeling sensation in another, rebalancing that hip point, right foot steps down, dropping the left knee, but not the toe. I love to interlace my fingers behind the body. It just reminds me to keep my chest open. We're wanting to move into ways that we don't normally move in our sedentary lifestyles. And then take a bow. Let's try that again. Keep active in those feet as you hinge from the belly, opening up the chest, breathing in that delicious salt air from Asbury Park to your home. Both hands plant, hips lift up first, feeling that lengthening of your spine as the back leg floats to the top of the mat. Utkatasana. Feel that hinging. And even if you're not too sure where that hinging should be, just use that breath, strong exhale to feel those muscles staying committed. Tadasana. Notice your footprints here. Are they equal? Are they level? You know, it's just always, that's what practice should be. Let's fold forward. Finding Utkatasana. So beautiful. Waiting a long time for this weather to turn. Hands plant. Maybe shaking out the Bootylicious, Curvalicious, Posturelicious. lengthening the spine. I'm going to pick up my left heel, pushing demand into the ball mound of my foot, and then maybe stepping back, dropping the knee, 90-degree lunge. So as I push and add rotation, can I keep my hip to not go under with it? Can I activate my ball of my foot so I'm feeling those lateral hip stabilizing muscles? Maybe looking down, making sure I'm active in that tricep as I corkscrew that arm bone up. And we're going to pick up the back knee into twisted crescent, seeing how that feels and adding that rotation, but not dropping the hip, putting more energy into the ball mound of the foot. Come back to center, airplay those arms, maybe interlace the fingers behind the body and play with that belly button movement of extension of the spine, pressing both footprints away from each other, hooking those thumbs, high crescent lunge, adding that reach, rebending the knee, and seeing if you can sense the curve of that low back, and then rolling those long bones, sensing where you're at in your back body, in your core body, ball mounds of the footprint, really feeling the love, working strong in the triceps too. Last time, rebending, using the arches of the footprint. So vital, so important. Opening it up, wide lunge. Maybe take these wide lunges for a hop, keeping length. Notice it in those squats that you are, again, playing with that sensation of hingement. So I can hinge without thinking about my footprints, or I can Dorothy click them out, those heels to widen. So I'm getting more of a feedback into the hip. And then see if I have more length happening. Hopefully you do. I'm going to keep my right hand active, gripping all 5 fingers, and then adding rotation. Add rotation towards the sun, using that breath, and then get more energy into those heels. Maybe bringing, bending, extending at the knees, making it feel good. I'm going to bind or use my forearm on top of my right thigh as I side angle, and as I press it away, my hips are open, adding that reach, sensing where you're at, lifting from the bottom side to help open up the top side. And then both arms are going to cartwheel to the front of your mat. And let's step into 3-legged plank, gripping all 10 fingers, and be hovering the right knee and feeling that play of movement into T12, opening up the spine, dropping the right knee, modified side plank, adding that reach, pressing down to get up. I'm going to bend my top elbow and putting more demand of my skull into my hand as I continue to open. Maybe bending my left knee as I stick out the butt, and then growing with tension all the way back, just playing with movement. Left hand plants, 3-legged plank, and then gripping all 10 fingers, get a little perky, feel that curve As you lower down, heart space leads the way. Baby cobra. Let's bend the left knee, look right, and then switch it, keeping the amazing length of your spine. Hips lift up, pressing down to lift, big toes together, child's pose. Always using a block, maybe to rest that third eye. As you roll to the left, roll to the right. So amazing. And feeling breath and radiant sensation down the spine, up the front, expanding into the spaces of the ribs, down the back, and coming up a little higher, and explore those ranges, keeping the hips active. Quadruped. Let's move into cow. Corkscrew those arm bones, using demand of the footprints and handprints. And then maybe coming into cat, segmentally take your time. I know we want to rush these things, but working neurologically is a slow progression, holding progression to find the stabilization in the space your body needs. Pressing more demand of the footprints as we move back into cow. Keep that length of your spine. Feeling the muscles underneath the shoulder blades active as we hover the knees. Keep that curve in the down dog. If you're used to just flattening and locking, try to separate. Try to practice a little differently in how your body can separate the thoracic and lumbar back curves. Pedal out those footprints. And then looking ahead, big toes together, knees bend, and then hop, or maybe walk. Find that Utkatasana, hinging at the belly, pressing demand into both those feet. Find your Tadasana. Again, constantly go into what your feet are doing, what body parts might feel different with every time you practice. Hook those thumbs. Radiant reach. Bending at your knees. Hands print. Finding that length. And as we come down, both hands plant. Stepping that right foot back. 90 degree lunge. Invite those footprints into the party. As we add that reach. And as much as I'm pushing down and wrapping that tricep, I'm very, very much active in my lateral hip. Has to be invited to. Twisted crescent. And then maybe even get more energy of those hips to manifest their strength. Using that breath. Pushing in with demand. Both hands plant. Going to move into three-legged plank. Keep that knee bent and sense the low back curve. Maybe even getting more information, inviting the shoulders down the back of the body, not using trapezius muscles, dropping the left knee. Modified side plank. Adding that reach. How can we push demands of our hands and our feet once again create something even more magical. I'm going to step my right foot to land, finding that length, playing with that space. I'm going to kick that right foot back, adding plank, adding side plank, adding that reach, lifting up the bottom side to help the top side. Left foot steps forward, opening up into wide angle, and maybe even adding some hops. How do we squat? How do we stick out that bootylicious to make things happen? Let's hold with the right hand down, gripping all 5 fingers. Move on in, really get active on the back body. And Dorothy, quick those heels to widen. Keep this lateral hip, give it a little love tap if it needs it. Adding that reach. Adjust your sails. It's so amazing. When I think I'm in a sauna, I can do it better by having some more magic in that hold. Maybe bringing that side angle to the back of your mat. Being curious as to how the arches work, how the suppleness of the back works. Lifting up from the bottom to help open up the top. Maybe bringing the skull more into the head into the hands, and lean on into it, keeping that curve. Cartwheeling the hands to the front of your mat. 3-legged plank. Get a little perky in the hips. Lumbar back curve is happening for 5, 4, 3. Heart space leads the way. 2 and 1. This time let's move into locust. Picking up the front of the arm bones. Of course, you're going to feel that curve all the way to the hip, to the shoulders. Trying to keep the shoulders down so you can even feel curve in the cervical spine. If Bo is in that practice, see how you can continuously widen those collarbones. Maybe energizing those thigh bones. Working very hard in your entire body. Softly come back into locust. Both hands plant, toes tuck under, hips lift up, press down and lift up, big toes together. Child's pose. How do you feel? What is your body saying to you as you're moving, as you're playing? That's what yoga practice should do. You should just be playing and exploring the biointelligence in your body. I'm using that extension and flexion here, but not moving the hips. It's like a toggle switch. You really want to be able to independently work one body part versus the other. And as we age, that neurology changes where everything works as a chunk, and we don't want that. Keep playful in your practice. No matter whatever you do. Down dog. Looking ahead, big toes together, hopping or walking. Find your Tadasana. Maybe open coat arms, just swirling it around, seeing how you can gain some curves in the way that you continuously move. You need to be rounded in our bodies to take up absorption of force that happens all day long. Find your Tadasana, checking out your feet, hands print to the heart, opening up the heart. Breathe it on back, picking up your left heel. And notice if you pick up your left heel, if you naturally bring your hips back, that should be a automatic reflex. And if it's not, use your ball, your foot, use your footprints to make that happen. And we're coming through. And then notice if you were to turn, and to turn, you keep your, maybe lift both heels as you turn. As you turn, a lot of information happening, but play with it. We're going to come to hook, or maybe to add a twist, pushing even more perkiness of the butt as the heel is lifted. Heels are lifted, and then maybe pedaling out those footprints and relaxing both heels, adding rotation and sensing, yeah, we can round, but how we explore to pull back, to finding that length, opening. I'm gonna pick up my right heel and see if I can slide with long length of my spine, that right foot back. And then coming back into that prayer, reminding your spine that it needs to find that length, keep that length. And we're coming back to plant. Let's kind of internal rotate the leg, external rotate the hip as we push into the ball of the foot. And we're lifting and we're lowering. And then finally coming into pigeon. And feel that exploration as you are at flexion and extension into that belly button, into pigeon. You can always use blocks to support the hip, gripping all 10 fingers. And of course, flexion kind of locks up the hips. Do you feel that? So that's what happens when we are not separating our spines, bodies, the thoracic spine and the lumbar back. If it's going in the same position, no wonder why the sciatica region gets onto your forearms, whatever's in your practice, gripping all 10 fingers, maybe narrowing the elbows, widening the wrists to get that length. I feel a little neuro quiver going on here, get a little perkier. Figure 4 is another alternative that you can go into, meaning your supine facing up with your ankle crossed on the opposite thigh, if this is not right for you. But whatever it is, I want you to play with that extension, keeping extension, and that back foot is going to come front, maybe sitting on both of your blocks, And if your ankles don't want to cross, that's okay. But see if you can slide so you're like a barrel going over the waterfall. My blocks, if I look behind, have a little propness lift up because my butt is like absorbing into the blocks. I love soft blocks. Cork blocks sometimes are a little too hard and my tissue does not go into them, but whatever it is that you use, do it with breath. See if you can melt into your mat, your blocks, finding length of your spine. I energetically reach my knees. That feels good. I can play with getting more valuable space into my body, maybe taking a stretch out of the hands. Truly being in the moment. The moment is the only thing we're promised. So gracious to have time well spent with our breath, with our body, with our heart space. I'm going to plant my hands and maybe pedal out my hands and just finding vibrant sensation as my hips actively plant and my spine lengthens. And see if you can find that breath, arms lift up. See if you can lean into that strength that you have. It's there into your body. You use so much flexion and finding strength. Seeing if you can find that extension of your spine as you lean forward and feel that difference of being relaxed versus extended. Maybe both hands plant. Wrapping those triceps, getting light. Keeping the ankles crossed. And ends justify the means. Any way that you can come to the top of your mat, find your Tadasana, notice your feet, notice your footprints. Each and every time you explore from one side to the other, make better friends within your body, hands print to the heart, adding that good morning stretch, or maybe it's good evening, adding that reach. Utkatasana. And I'm gonna pick up my right heel, keep length in my spine. Hands come to heart, adding rotation. Picking up both heels. Woo. Yeah, baby. Always a challenge. Feel those big toes. We're going to hold to the right, keeping those heels lifted. And maybe find that prayer, that twisted prayer position, and activate ball mound of the foot, lifting the hips to find space. Slide on back. Be hovering it. Maybe landing it. Find the extension of your spine. So amazing. Such a gift. Pushing demand in the ball mound of the foot. Make the foot a little perky. Coming into airplane arms. Hinging from the length of your spine. Pushing those footprints away. Tall left. Reaching overhead. Lifting and lowering. Maybe even feeling more energy into the abs working, glute working. Bring it on down, and as our chest is moving forward, the butt moves back. Both hands are going to plant. Internal rotation. Invite those shoulders down. Finding extension and flexion here. Gently landing into that pigeon. Again, figure 4 is where you're on your back. If this feels better for you, but keep the low back curve. Choice is entirely up to you, but do what is best for you and your body. I like to keep my ankles flexed. A lot of communication to the pelvic floor with your ankle mobility. So feel that, embrace it, lengthening. Sense what happens when you flex. Maybe a little tightness. And that's not what we want. We want that to open. Finding breath and radiant sensation each and every time you take a pause. Each and every time you slow down, find something new in your life, in the way your body moves and grooves all day long. Pretty amazing. So, whatever that might be, even if you're going into scorpion, feel all the limb bones suction cup in. Feel that hingement. Reaching to get there. That's in your practice. But feel the hingement. Keeping extension. Back foot comes around. Using blocks or whatever is needed. If your ankles do not want to be crossed, don't cross them. Go into something better for you and your body. Being gracious for your breath. Keeping length in your spine. Using that breath to go to any dormant areas that need love more. I love hanging on to my knees. It just furthers the reminder of length into my body, into my spine, into my hips. Everything should be delicious, felt. There's no such thing as pain, no gain. It's working with what feels good to make gain, to acquire more space, to help gaining and maintaining movement for our life. That's really what it's about. Hands pressed to the heart. Using that breath, holding at the top, opening its mouth. Let that go. Let that breath go. Inhale. Holding at the top. Exhale. Find that root. Even though we're expanding, lifting, lengthening, exploring, take flight. Come into your Savasana. I want to see what, or you should want to see what your practice does for you in your Savasana. Hopefully you're not on your tailbone. Hopefully you feel that radiant sensation in the low back. I'm just going to use the half roller to remind fluid flow to help keep your hips open. Water moves concrete, so we need that water flow to help move flow into the hips. My feet, how do your footprints feel? Hopefully they feel amazingly level. Breathing space between those bony landmark bones in front of your hips. And seeing if you can honor the breath to helping those beautiful stabilization muscles to work. I'm adding a gentle shear, external rotation, internal rotation, maybe flexing at my ankle, rounding my ankle. Every time I move, I just honor the breath. Switching sides, switching positions, slightly angling, trying to really be very small in my slightly angling position so I can get the space of the SI joint alive and well to accept that fluid. Opening up breath. Angling the knees, frog legs. So much easier than when we first started. Hopefully you feel that in your body too. Maybe using that happy baby. I'm going to keep my chest open and my hips are an anterior tilt. Just going to adjust this a little to be even more so on my hip crest so it reminds my hips to stay open. Active in those shoulder blades to be felt to the floor, maybe one side, but keep entertaining that low back space. Keep entertaining the hips to stay open, anterior tilt. I love a little love tap of the inside edge of my elbows to the inside edge of my knees. Don't have to even bend my knees fully to get the benefits. Opening up breath, bringing in new life, doing what feels good in your body, landing, energetically pushing away, using that stretch of the arms overhead. And now enjoy that Savasana. It kept getting better and better. Hopefully that was felt in your body too. Take your time. Take your time in your Savasana. Breathing all the way from the top to the bottom, to the sides, to the back, to the front. Moving breath. Moving life force to parts that need it most. Keep your deliciousness, body parts happy. Let them work together as one. Let your biointelligence move you in ways that heal you. Thank you for being kind to all beings, and most of all, being kindest to yourselves. Namaste. Thank you for joining. Thank you for taking good care of you. Namaste.